Hello and welcome to Declassified, the classical music podcast created and hosted by me, Robert Guy. In today's episode, I sit down and talk to conductor Ellie Slorach, who, like me, is based in Manchester in the north of England. Ellie is currently the assistant conductor for the Orchestre Philharmonique Royale de Liège in Belgium and is also the artistic director of Cantos Chamber Choir, which she founded 7 years ago along with her best friend. For those of you that follow my career, you will know that 10 years ago, along with my brother John Guy, we founded New Sinfonia, a professional chamber orchestra based in North Wales, which over the last few years has expanded to include our New Voices vocal ensemble, education programme and academy pathway. I wanted to chat with Ellie about the hard graft, joys and benefits that come from starting your own ensemble and see how it compared to my experiences with New Sinfonia. We also chat about our shared vision for choral music in the north of England. And finally, in what is an unedited part of the conversation, we talk openly and honestly about the life of a career as a conductor, which at times can feel quite lonely. And I hope you appreciate our honesty as we talk about dealing with success, as well as the ups and downs and rejections as you start and build a career as a conductor. We both feel strongly that this is a conversation that needs to be encouraged more, as we all have far more in common than you might think, regardless of age, experience or background. Finally, thank you to everybody that is tuning in to Declassified around the world. It's been great to hear from people in America, South America, in Brazil, Chile, Argentina, over to Europe, to Asia and Australia. Thank you so much for listening and reaching out to me. There are parts of the conversation that assume you have an awareness of the choral scene in London and the rest of the UK, and the conversation goes on to clarify those differences for you. In any case, it's time to go and meet Ellie, and thanks for listening. So it's great to see you. Thank you for coming.
No, thanks for having me.
You've been really busy since January, assisting in Liège. I just wondered if you could just tell everyone who's listening what you've been up to in the last 3 months, because it's been busy.
It has been busy. I'm sort of coming back down to earth now, really. I have a job in Belgium, as you say, assisting an orchestra in Liège called the Orchestre Philharmonique Royale de Liège, and their chief conductor is Gergely Madarash. So I'm either assisting him with symphonic projects with the orchestra. So, for example, this weekend they did Brahms' Requiem. So I'm sitting at the back of the hall with the score, and he's turning around saying, can you hear the trumpets? Can you hear the choir? Is this too loud? And so on. Or I'm conducting their family and education concerts, school concerts. So the not subscription concerts, of which I've had quite a lot of them since January as well. So I've been toing and froing from Manchester to Belgium quite a lot. And amid that, I also conduct various choirs in the region, including my own choir, Cantos Chamber Choir, which is a professional chamber choir in Manchester. And I had a big project at the Royal Opera House as well for International Women's Day, which was really cool. We did 7 brand new operas. We premiered them in London St Pancras International. They were all to do with, they were all written by female composers and female librettists and conducted by female conductors. And directed by a woman as well. So I was in London for a number of weeks working on those, and then we popped up at the train station on International Women's Day and premiered them numerous times. So we did about 21 opera performances of these 5-minute operas that day, and that was quite tiring but also super duper cool. So yeah, it's been busy, but here I am in Manchester again.
So we've been chatting privately. You want to make Manchester your home. And I wondered if you could tell us about Cantos and how that started.
Yeah, sure. Well, Cantos really began because I went to the University of Manchester and studied music, and in my final year, I was the director of the University Chamber Choir at Solem, and it's a really great standard. And I came out of university into the big wide world and thought, oh, I miss a really good standard chamber choir to conduct. That's where I'm really learning. So I got my friends together who I sort of graduated with and created Cantos there and then. And we did a concert that November, sort of the November after I had graduated from university. And it's grown from there. So that was in 2015, and now here we are, 2022.
7 years.
7 years, that sounds a bit long now. Let's pretend it's not so long.
It's 7 years for you. I graduated in 2009, so that's, gosh, what's that? 19, 20, 21, 22, 13 years. I can do maths as a real player. It flies by. So you started Cantos because you wanted to be yourself working as a conductor with great
Basically,
singers.
yeah. So in many ways, selfish, really.
Yeah.
Really to keep my skill set up.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't go straight into college, I sort of didn't have loads of things to do as a conductor immediately out of university. That work is hard to find. I had 2 choral society jobs, which was great, 2 evenings of the week, and I worked for Opera North in their education department in going into schools, and that it was conducting, but it was more sort of vocal and animateur work is what they would probably call it. So that's why I started Cantos, I guess selfishly, and 7 years on it's really grown into something completely different actually. I now see it as completely fundamental to the future of choral singing in the north, because there is no professional chamber choir in the north of the country, which is bonkers when you think about it. Completely bonkers. I feel like we're...
And a very, very smart business move.
Yeah.
You got there first.
Let's say that no one's in this for the money, are we? But I feel like, yes, I think we accidentally got in there first, mostly because, and I'm being too humble and modest on my part and on the general manager's part, my best friend Claire, who runs the choir. We grafted hard to keep this going. You do see variations on this all over the country, and you have to just you know this from your own ensemble, you just have to put more time and effort in, well, then firstly you're paid for, and secondly that you can sort of stay awake for, really. So yeah, we've worked really, really hard, and it's going to the place where we want it to go now, with a lot of time and effort, blood, sweat and tears, really. And we're still doing that, and we're in a really good place now where things are starting to sort of snowball, and people notice us now. People know who we are, why we exist, and yeah, I just want to get the message out of why we're really here. And we're not just here to plug the professional gap. We're also here to make choral singing have a better name for itself, to be way more relevant, because it's become very not relevant. Or not even not relevant, it's stagnated as a certain thing, and I think it needs to move with the times and speak to the people of Manchester and also further afield in the north. We want to stay in the north, that's our kind of main thing. And we want to tell, most of the programming that I do it's not sort of to display choral music. That's not really the point. It uses choral music and it shows off incredible choral music, but it's also within a sort of narrative or a story, or has a reason to be there for the audience. So yeah, that's where we've got to, and it's ongoing.
I love the fact that you perform in traditional concert venues, and the fact that you perform at Victoria Waterbacks.
Yeah.
Things like that. I think it's a really exciting group, and from my work at Manchester, every single singer wants to get into Cantos, which is a really great place to be, because it's not just benefiting Cantos, but it's benefiting the wider Manchester area of people seeing that there is a professional vocal ensemble that is at a really high standard nationally, not just it's good for Manchester or it's not in London, it's really good. And I love the fact that you do things a little bit differently, and your programming is really diverse, and you have a lot of opportunities for composers as well, people coming through. I love your advent calendar at Christmas. Love that. I just wondered, just to pick up on two things. So many people see via the world of social media and the website and everything like that where you are now with Cantos. Could you just tell us about those early years with Cantos? Because you are very humble. Cantos is great, and it's there because of you and your team. And I'd like if you could just tell us what those early years were like and what kept you going when it was hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe concert one is a good concert to think about because, so for example, this weekend we've got a tour of concerts, and tickets are going well. We know people will turn up on the door, but we've already sold. We've got 3 venues, and we're already like way over 50% capacity, and we know people will come on the door, which is great.
That's great.
And I don't know the people in the audience. I'm looking at the names of people who have bought tickets, and I think I have no idea who you are, which means this is fantastic. We're reaching way away from the circle of people we just know. Great. Concert 1, November 2015, there were 6 people in the audience. I knew all of them, and 4 of them were my parents and close family. So it had humble beginnings. We did this crazy programme. We did like Messiaen, Debussy, loads of Norwegian stuff in Norwegian, a language I can't speak. So honestly, God knows what I was thinking back then. I guess we started off with, I don't want to say, I guess a sort of really hopeful naivety, and that's a really nice way to start something. And this concert had no people. It was not a moneymaker. We didn't pay the singers to be there. It was very much all to do with friends helping and wanting to do it for the right reasons. But obviously, there's only so far that can carry, and eventually, if we're going to hit the standard we want to hit, then we have to pay people because it has to be a professional thing, and we have to be paying people for their time to give us what they want. What we want, and what our audiences want to come and listen to. So really the hard work began from it's trying to find the money to finance these things. I mean, even if you don't pay the singers, you still have to hire a rehearsal venue, hire the concert venue, hire the music. And when 6 people come to the concert, there's no ticket sales helping that, really.
I noticed that you didn't say pay yourself.
Oh, that's at the bottom of the list. Yeah. But it's true. You can't pay yourself, and even now, you can't quantify the time that you're putting in, and even the hours that you're just thinking. You're mulling things over. Or I'm thinking of the programs now for late 2023, early. I'm starting to think about 2024 in my mind, because now we're at the stage where we have to think further ahead about funding applications, and we just have to be way ahead of the game. But at the time, I guess if someone's listening and they're thinking about doing this themselves, it's writing letters to trusts for smaller grants, making sure that people in the area start to know your name, and also that you're doing things for the area and for a reason in the area. And networking, but for the right reasons. Again, I'm really not someone who wants to network for networking's sake. I like talking to other artists to find ideas, to be inspired by them, and so on.
Yeah, the way that you describe Cantos' journey reminds me of New Sinfonia. Mm-hmm. You said it's your best friend, that's your manager. Well, it's my brother, and it was founded upon a friendship of a core group of people that were from North Wales and had finished the National Youth Orchestra of Wales, that wanted to keep making music to a really high standard in North Wales and to have a reason to come back to North Wales. So kind of how you describe wanting to reignite the choral scene of a professional standard in Manchester, that was our mission for North Wales. You know, we wanted to have a professional group resident in North Wales, and you know, for the first 5 years it was friends coming together, support of local groups and individuals being incredibly generous to get to a point where you understand how business works to be able to apply for grants and set up as a company and now a charity. And the graft is a really good word because it's hours and hours of doing all kinds of things, but you then get to a point that you can start to see that you've got foundations and roots are turning into stems, into flowers. And it was great to share that concert with at the North Wales International Music Festival when we did Rebecca Dale's Requiem with Turner. And I know, you know, in the last 3 or 4 years since then, the choir go from strength to strength. So keep going.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's going very well, and it's an exciting time for us, actually. We've just become a charity, like you just said about your ensemble, and that really helps. Now we have a board of trustees to sort of report to and also to support us, which feels really nice. It doesn't feel like we're battling this world by ourselves. But also when you have bigger audiences, you also feel that you know why you're doing it, don't you, when you're reaching people who you've never met before and they know Cantos and they're telling their friends, oh, come to this concert, and so on. You then have this, not even an ego boost, but just this feeling that, oh, we're doing the right thing.
I ask all of my guests for their magical music moments.
Okay, there have been many, many moments in the last few years even that I could call magical moments, and in my whole musical life. So I'm going to pick a moment that was just kind of different and cool, and I just thought, yeah, this is why I am a conductor, and also now we've been talking about Cantos, why I do Cantos. So we performed in the Victoria Baths recently, in September actually, for a programme called Drop Drop, and it was to do with climate change, and it was to do with water and climate change, which is why we were in now a disused swimming pool. Although sometimes they fill it up with water still, but anyway, there was no water in there. So we were in this empty swimming pool, which had a sloped swimming pool floor. So I was conducting from the deep end and the choir were facing me from the shallow end. And the audience were all on the balcony around the top watching us from above, sort of looking down. And the whole programme was through composed in terms of we went from piece to piece with no stopping, and we had sort of improvisatory moments, and we walked around the space, and I'd devised the whole programme using existing choral music. Obviously I'm not a composer myself. And when it had been sort of received at the end, it felt, because there was no audience applause throughout the concert, it had this weird feeling of concentration in the space. You know, it felt like everyone was gripped, the audience, the singers, me, because there was no break from piece to piece. There was an hour of this performance. And then when it kind of ended, and we ended with this really fun improvisation, we harmonised a piece freely in improvised, a sort of spiritual type piece. I just felt so cool at the end of that. I just thought that was just that was how choral music can be, just great and cool and different, but also say something. But also we performed so much very traditional choral music in that space. And I think that programme was a real turning point in my mind for the future of how I programme Cantos. So that's why it was a magical moment for me. Because ultimately, although I love conducting Cantos, I really do, artistically devising the concerts is my real joy. So that was a cool moment.
I just want to go back to 7 years of Cantos, is that right? 7 years?
Yeah, 7 years this November.
So jump ahead another 7 years. As somebody that wants to make their home as a professional conductor in Manchester in the north. What would you love the choral scene of Manchester in the north to look like? For Cantos and in general, because I've already touched on the impact that Cantos is having elsewhere.
Yeah.
What would you love to see?
Well, firstly, let me start by saying I'm not saying there's no choral scene up north. There's an enormous choral scene up north, led by the amateur choral world, which is the backbone of choral singing in this country, for sure. And I don't doubt that is basically the reason for choral singing in this country being deemed so fantastic. So it's wonderful in the region to have the Halle Choir, the Liverpool Philharmonic Choir, to have the chamber choirs at the university, the chamber choir at the Royal Northern College of Music, and so on, and numerous choral societies, unbelievable amounts of choral singing in the region.
We have benefited as conductors from working with all of these.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so do the next generation coming through. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So that should absolutely continue and thrive, but also take a look at itself and make sure that what it is doing is staying relevant, because as I was sort of saying about Cantos earlier, the choral world is steeped in tradition, coming from the church, basically. And it's really important that it does move with the times, in the same way that the whole classical music world has had to take a good, long look at itself recently. It's the same with choral music, it's exactly the same thing. So I hope that the organisations that do already produce very good choral music think about how they stay relevant to their audience. I also think that to be in 7 years' time, let's say, if we're going to have this aspirational choral scene, we need a professional chamber choir in the region, which I hope will be Cantos still, and maybe others. There should be enough.
With gritted teeth.
I know. There could be others. But
I think that it's a healthy thing if there are more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Like
because
London,
it breeds culture, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not. People say in London, there's not just one of everything. There's five.
Yeah.
I think it will because of the work that you've done with Cantos.
I really hope
that
so.
Would inspire that.
I really would hope so. I think there should be one in Liverpool, there should be one in Newcastle, and so on. And the main reason I'm saying that is because what we need are people who are paid full-time to live here as professional choral singers, because at the moment that is effectively not a viable living option, as far as I can see. And I have a number of friends who are incredible choral singers up here. There isn't the work. The church choral scene is just dropping choirs left, right, and centre. Paid work as choral singers. That's people in London can nearly make a living on depping as choral singers. Sunday is a lucrative day in London as a choral singer. It's not here. There's the cathedral. There's the oratory. People can correct me if I'm wrong. In Manchester, that's where I think the paid choral work is. Salford Cathedral has some paid positions. So
I thought it was supposed to be the day of rest.
That's when I want everyone to work. That's hard. There's not enough work like that. There's not enough sort of deputy work. And I would love Cantos, as one example, to be able to offer salaried positions to choral singers in the same way that's how the BBC singers work in London. Or just enough work that you could live off it as a freelancer up here. So that's how I would like to see things sort of financially change up here.
Well, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be you and Cantos, because you're driving the way, and your commitment and your graft and your enthusiasm for it is palpable, and it rubs off on everybody. It's infectious.
Yeah.
So,
I hope so.
Yeah, keep going. It's also exactly how I would describe my mission and work in North Wales. To have,
exactly.
A lot of the musicians in New Symphonia now play with the top orchestras in the country, LPO, the Philharmonia, the Halle, I can go on. And it's just to have regular work in North Wales, because it's tokenistic when people come and go, and to have something that's resident there in North Wales, as you describe, professional singers in Manchester paid. You need people to be here to embed themselves in the communities for the ripples to truly go. So. Couple of quick questions.
Yeah.
Are you a choral conductor or are you a conductor?
I am firmly of the belief that I'm a conductor.
Do you get irritated by the labels?
I used to. I think by getting the assistant job in Liège, people have seen me a little bit differently and seen that I kind of do work with orchestras now.
Because you do both really well. But the labels I find annoying.
I do find them annoying because I just think that you're a conductor or you're not able to conduct, and if you can't conduct if you're a choral conductor and you're doing a piece with an orchestra that turn up on the day and you can't work with the orchestra, then you've got a problem on your hands. And the same thing if you're by trade an orchestral conductor, but you're doing Brahms Requiem at the weekend. And the choir turn up and you literally don't know how to talk to the choir because you just can't ask for the right things, then you've got a problem on your hands.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that you can't work more with one or more with another and find one, more to your tastes, maybe. But I think the gestures, I don't think we should see huge differences in the gestures. The gestures should just in the end be clear and helpful to whoever you're working with. Yeah. And the choral world gets a bad reputation for having unclear conductors, so if choral conductors can lose that label, then great. I think that's a good thing that we don't want.
I think it was Simon Halsey that said you want to get your orchestra to sing like a choir and your choir to play like an orchestra.
Yeah.
And then they come together.
I think that's exactly how I think. And maybe I do look completely different gesture-wise when I conduct cantos a cappella, but I don't feel in my head like I turn up to the choir rehearsal and unleash a completely different set of gestures on them than I do when I turn up to the orchestra. I hold a baton a lot of the time with an orchestra, so that's different. But so that's how I feel, and I think I'll carry on. I mean, in my life, I almost sort of just go through my life thinking of doing projects rather than thinking of almost even being a conductor. Does that sound weird? I just sort of think, oh, I'm doing that thing then, and I don't really think, and that will be my orchestral work, and then this will be my. I sort of just go on.
It's music.
Yeah, music and projects looking exciting and projects that I want to do, sort of thing.
What would your musical recommendation be? And then you can fill it in.
This would change on probably a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. At the moment, I'm really into... Well, I'm kind of thinking of a future programme, but I can't say much more than that, for Cantos. And on the sort of theme of, in my head, I guess, minimalism, very simply, but really thinking about like meditative choral music or conjuring up that sort of thing. And I love Steve Reich, I love... Meredith Monk, and I've been listening to this composer called Peritan, and I feel like that's minimalism. I'm going to get the century wrong, so I'm not going to say which century Peritan is from, but anyway, I feel like it's the beginnings of choral minimalism, and it's insanely cool. There's a whole album on Spotify. I can't remember even who sings on the album, so this is terrible for you listeners, I'm so sorry. But
I'll share. You can send it to me and I'll share it on the
perfect
podcast Spotify playlist so everyone can hear it in there.
It's just crazy cool. And it sounds new age, but it's not at all. And so I was kind of listening to that and finding that really kind of inspired. So I would recommend that. And then talking of Meredith Monk, I'm also really into her music, and we've recently performed a piece by her called Earth Seen from Above, and that pair those together, I think you'll have a really quite cool listening experience.
Well, they will be added to the playlist and people can listen from there. Just before we wrap up, just want to go back and touch on what we were talking about earlier with Cantos and where it is now, and people perhaps not necessarily being aware and seeing the journey that got Cantos to today.
Yeah.
And just zone in on you as a conductor carving out a career, and just wanted to have a conversation about the ups and downs about establishing yourself from university and conservatoire to building a career. How have you found that journey, and how did you celebrate the successes, and how did you deal with the knockbacks?
Yeah, this is a really good question, really important question, and it's something that we should all talk about more, I think, because we all see the social media front of everyone and we never hear the bad bits, behind the scenes bits. So I guess I was lucky in that when I was leaving university, I was already I was set up by June or whenever it was with enough work that I thought I'm safe, I'm secure, financially and I guess musically as well.
So you can put beans on toast on the table.
Exactly. Exactly that. And you don't get you have to start paying council tax. Right. And I was living with two people who were still students, so I had to pay the whole thing. Anyway, so that's a bad idea. There's a bit of advice. Plus they're still living the student dream. But anyway, so I guess I was that's lucky, because I felt I was lucky to leave knowing that I had something to sort of go to and start out. The good moments, and I think I would say at the beginning, in if I could give advice to people sort of at the beginning, especially if they want to be a conductor, it was really about whatever thing I'd been invited to do. So say I'd been invited by someone a bit older than me to deputise for them with their choral society. It was to be really, really prepared, never see these things as beneath yourself. Never think that just because you've come out of university where, yes, the standard is high, of course it's high, everyone there's there to make music at a very high level, don't think that you're going to come out and have that sort of music making immediately, that sort of experience. You need to see why
unless you're ridiculously lucky.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're ridiculously lucky. Yeah, it's not unheard of. But don't think that this maybe choir of 20 singers in the middle of it's maybe right in the middle of the Peak District. This is really important to that group of people, that choir, and will be really important to the area that it's in for concert experiences and so on. And no, the level won't be the same level that you've just conducted at university, but it's really, really important. So prepare very, very well, be your best, do your absolute best job, bring all of your enthusiasm, bring your expertise, and be inspiring to the people in the room. And most of the work that I was getting, where I'm sort of heading with this point, is that it was really word of mouth that sounds like a sort of horrible networking thing, but I don't mean it like that. I mean that if you're turning up and you're a nice person, you emailed them back on time, you invoiced quickly if they want an invoice, or you're very thankful when they pay you for some work, and you do a really good choir rehearsal or orchestra rehearsal. So-and-so in the back row also happens to be in the local amateur orchestra, and then they invite you to be a musical director for a term or something. It's a lot done on word of mouth, but word of mouth because you've done a really good job, not word of mouth because your mate is giving you a job. You have to do a good job. So that was the way I was, I guess, carving what you might call success at the beginning of things. I did go to college and I did do a master's in conducting, which helped no end. I can't deny that that wasn't a useful thing to do, and brought me professional opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Mark and Clark are nodding furiously now.
Yeah. Little plug for the RNCN there.
It's a great place.
It is.
I studied there as well, learned so much from both Mark and Clark and my viola teachers at the time. It's a fantastic place.
Yeah, and they continue to be mentors. That's the thing, obviously I was there for 2 years, but even now, I saw Clark last night, I saw Mark the other week, and I text. They probably find me irritating, but I also should I take this on? Should I quick text here and there?
Yeah.
They're here for me, and I really appreciate that. Still.
And Mark
always will.
Mark, the contacts between Mark and the RNCN, they now hire in New Sinfonia and they're hiring cantor. So
exactly.
It says so much about,
Exactly.
Conducting we can be almost seen to want to be in a selfish world, and it's good to help and work with people to collaborate.
Exactly. And I think that for me is the way forwards anyway in this world, because if I sort of haven't talked about the other side of your question, which is the lower moments of this life.
We're about to have a wonderful bridge from that conversation to this. This is smart. Well done. Bridging in.
Without wanting to sound like I've had really tough times in this world, in this world where people have much worse struggles than I have. Absolutely, these are, I guess, what I might call first world problems overall, but the times that have been really difficult have been feelings of imposter syndrome, basically, feelings of being not good enough to be on the podium, and that really playing on my mind, really causing anxious feelings and feelings of real worry and really deep-rooted worry. So imposter syndrome is something that I've definitely had to deal with, and I think it's something we should all talk about a lot more. And often feeling quite lonely, actually, as my work has taken off more in the last couple of years, and I've been travelling a lot more to do the work. So I've been in Belgium, I've been in London, but I live in Manchester. I've been in various places basically for long periods of time away from home. It can be really quite lonely, especially if you're working with an orchestra or a choir that you're new to working with. You don't have any friends there. After rehearsals are finished, it is a bit lonely to go and eat dinner by yourself. So I think there's a lot that can be said about that we maybe don't say. And obviously you can help yourself by being proactive about finding people to go out for dinner with or whatever. But I guess it's not even just, I'm probably being a bit light-hearted about going for dinner. It's more the fact that the role as a conductor is standing on the podium, sort of looking at all of the musicians who already know each other because they're the group that always play together week on week, and you're the outsider. And it's trying to it's trying to immediately make bonds with the people in the room so that you feel like it's a collaboration, whatever work you're doing. But ultimately, they see each other every single day, and you don't. So you are always going to be the slightly different one. And I think that's why I love working with groups regularly, the same group regularly, because I'm really a very much a sort of people person. I'm very interested in the psychology of music making, and as a conductor, how you keep the room alive, engaged, enthusiastic. That's really what my favourite part of the job is, that side of things. So when I'm working regularly with the same people, that's a lovely thing for me. Not that I don't want to meet new people, but you know what I mean.
I always liken it to that feeling where you're going to you meet your partner's parents and family for the first time, and you feel quite nervous, and it takes a while for you to build up that trust, and you feel like people are looking to see you're going to look after this person, are you a good person? And it's like it reminds me, it feels like that. And just to talk openly and honestly with you, imposter syndrome is definitely something that I identify with. I still keep in contact with teachers, and I have mentors and friends that I can talk to about these things, because it's important not to be on your own. But imposter syndrome is is something that I identify with, then that feeling, am I good enough to do this? Do I know this well enough? Oh my goodness, these people have done this piece far more times than I am. Who am I to be standing up and telling these people how to do it? And it's just, I always try to get to a point that I feel like I am so prepared. I take confidence from that, and I find that I can keep the imposter or the Steve Peters chimp paradox. I can keep the chimp
at bay.
Because it is hard, and when you're on your own, it's tough. And my journey as being a professional viola player to being a conductor, where I could go to the pub and I could be there and we'd all be slagging off the conductor over a beer.
Exactly.
You then go the other side and you experience, oh, actually, I probably shouldn't go to the pub now. I need to leave them alone. And that's what I love about New Sinfonia. We're all friends.
Yeah.
And they'll say it to my face. But it is important to talk about these things, because it's something that we all go through, and it's thank you for talking about that.
No, it's fine. I mean, part of me, I guess what I would really want in the future of music is that in the music world is that you don't need a thick skin. Is that, I mean, to a certain extent, we're doing a job that's actually quite nerve-wracking at times. So a thick skin to be able to deal with performance nerves and so on. But there should be a collective understanding that everyone in the room has a job to do, and the conductor has one job and the player has another job, and we all need to be accepting that the conductor can hopefully conduct well and the player can play well, and I can't play the violin as well as they can play the violin. I mean, I can't play the violin at all. So I'm very respectful of what they are doing in their job, and hopefully they're sort of respecting me for what I'm doing.
It's not a sign of weakness, though, as a conductor, as a leader, to acknowledge those feelings and to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's not. It's actually, I think, it's an opportunity to grow from.
I agree. Yeah, and on your point of preparing well, I'm exactly the same. That I have to be really well prepared, otherwise I feel terrible. I just need to know I'm where I can be as best prepared as possible. But the thing with learning a score or anything arty is that you can't quantify done, can you? You never prepare a score and then can go done, because you can always find more in it. You can always make more decisions, look at a bowing again, but
you find I feel I get to a point that I have that feeling inside that I go, I am prepared. I'm not going to be second guessing and doubting myself.
Oh yeah, exactly. There's your own level of preparedness that makes you feel really good. But sometimes I do struggle with that sort of never-ending goal of, I could always do a bit. Oh, I could look at it again.
Thank you, Ellie. I don't want to keep you from doing that Cantos programme, which is under wraps. I just wondered if we could finish with game time.
Oh no.
Manchester or London?
Manchester.
Live or virtual?
Live.
Niche or mainstream?
Both.
Okay. Conductor or no conductor?
I'm going to have to say conductor so I remain employed.
Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me, and good luck with everything that's coming up.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Thank you to you, the audience, for taking time to listen. I do hope that you're finding the chat inspiring and thought-provoking. If you can subscribe or follow on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts, I would really love that, as it helps build the profile, and please do spread the word of Declassified. If you've got any comments or feedback, please just reach out to me and let me know, as I've had a number of people do so, and it really helps me to know how things are coming across the radio waves. Thanks to Joe Blomfield for editing this episode, and to John Guy for the music. And until next time, have a great week. Bye bye.